Hey everyone, JagTagger93 here with another real good one for you today. This one is called Perilous Cavern by Leo Doom85. It was released late September this year and is really enjoyable. It plays about as great as it looks. Aesthetically, this map is absolutely gorgeous. And I especially really enjoy what the author did with regards to the dynamic colored lighting. Right at the start, the player is given the sense that this map will be a challenging one, and for the most part, it is. Every bit of the scenery emits that classic Doom Quake-esque aesthetic of dystopian industrial grime, and it's pitted fittingly alongside gothic structures and demonic imagery. Really well done, classic, but with a new 2018 kind of flavor to it. The rooms, while beautiful, all appear to have been made with gameplay in mind. There are large arena-type areas with enemies that'll snipe down at you. There are claustrophobic, tight environments. There's well-lit rooms and incredibly dark corridors and caverns, each one with their own appropriate enemies placed throughout. The two largest areas in the map serve as kind of a mid-boss and final boss areas, during which the player engages cyber demons along with other enemies in both areas. Really, the enemy placement to this one is also very smartly done, if not bordering slightly on the unfair at times. For example, 3/4 of the way the player will have to navigate their way through a cave. Visibility is very, very low in this area. There are some bright patches, but for the most part, it's very dark, if not pitch black, in some small areas. And I was really dreading, while navigating this area, of running into two types of enemies in particular. Hit-scan soldier types and archviles. Sure, a Spectre would be annoying too, but I figure as soon as I hear them chomping on my noggin, that's my signal to start shooting, and that'll be fine. Especially with a super shotgun, not a big deal, but encountering a zombie or an archvile, especially in this area, would be a real nightmare. Now, encountering an imp or a cacodemon in a dark area like this, not a problem. Their bright projectiles are very easy to spot and can help you guide your fire right back at the enemy if you can't, for some reason, see the enemy too clearly in the dim lighting. So, enemies like that, not a big deal, but yeah, a hit-scan zombie, especially one that's obscured or hard to spot, once it has a bead on you, it'll shoot and it'll probably hit you. So I was really, really worried about running into the shotgunners. Pistol guys would be annoying, but the shotgunners, or especially a chain gunner, or a few in this area. I was also worried about running into the archviles, because the archviles have an attack, as you guys know, that if they see you, they're going to hit you. The flames rise up, and as long as you're still in their eyesight, it's going to hit and take off a large bit of damage. You have to get out of their eyesight. The issue is, in this dark, cavernous type environment, finding cover or navigating to cover very quickly could be very, very daunting. I might be running right into the arms of another enemy, actually, for all I know. So, it was a very, very tricky area, compounded by how little ammunition I had at this point when I was playing through this one. Oftentimes I had to make the decision, okay, do I try to engage the enemies procedurally, even though there's a good chance I'll run out of ammo for later on, or do I try running and gunning, sprinting from first aid pickups, ammo pickups. Again, my first time playing this, I'm not exactly sure where everything is. I'm hoping there's stuff there. There was. But do I try running through this area, complete it, and not engage every single enemy that I see? So I ended up doing a mix of both, and but yeah, whatever you do here, the choice is yours and yours alone. Yeah, Legends of the Hidden Temple there. Really, the aesthetics of this WOD is really what drew me in, but what really makes this one stick in my mind and will make it memorable is the enemy placement, for all those reasons I mentioned before. I also want to bring up the last fight as well, because it's another spectacular example of great enemy placement that adds something to a WOD. So, going up to the final area, the author does more than enough here to signal to the player that a big fight is coming. And there's some fake outs, and they got me. But after those couple fake outs, it's go time. You have a bunch of demons and 2 cyber demons spawn in shortly after. And I'm thinking this is the big boss fight. You have 2 cyber demons, that's usually how a map would end. And you got some enemies to down. So, not a big deal, because you're in a very, very large environment here, and I was kind of feeling a little let down if this is our boss fight. Usually when you see cyber demons it is, like I said, but you got so much room here to move, so it really wasn't that hard. You know, it's tempting to make the cyber demons fight their own enemies, and then have the enemies fight the cyber demons as like monster infighting. But yeah, either way, it's really not a hard fight at all. So I took down the cyber demons, so I thought that was it. But right after that, more enemies spawn in, and it is a bunch of revenants with a handful of archviles. The mix-up of enemies here is very, very interesting. It presents a very unique challenge, and that's what I talk about a lot of times when I'm reviewing WODs. Here you had Revenants and Archviles. With the Revenants, it's tempting to try and take them on immediately. They don't take many shots to take out, but when you're doing that, you're exposing yourself to the line of sight from one of the Archviles. This is especially tricky, especially if you're playing this for the first time, you don't know what's coming, so you will likely see a bunch of Revenants, and you might just see one Archvile and make the mistake and think it's just that one, but no, there's actually about 3 in this area if I remember correctly. So yeah, you know how the Revenants attack. They attack with rockets, and the rockets will home in on you. So an experienced player can make the rockets kite around for days safely, not a big deal, just keep moving. But the issue is, if you keep moving, you're exposing yourself to the Archvile. With the Archvile, again, as long as he can see you, he's going to hit you. So you have to dart behind cover. Darting behind cover, though, if you're not careful, you might lose track of a homing rocket that'll nail you in the noggin. So there were times during this part where I had to make a choice, not a good choice, but an obvious one, but a tough choice, where I had to choose either, do I get hit by an Archvile flame, or do I get hit by one of the Revenant rockets? And this would happen within a split second once I realized a homing rocket is after me, and an Archvile has a bead on me. So again, like I said, it's an obvious choice. You take the rocket and, keep going, because the flames do a lot more damage. You also need to be really careful in this section as well, because there are other enemies here besides the Revenants and Archviles. You'll probably see those 2 first, but if you're not careful, you might end up sprinting over to another area where Hell Barons have spawned in, or even Super Pinkies have spawned in. If you engage all these enemies at the same time, you're gonna have a bad time, because you're running from the Archvile flames, you're running from the rockets, and you're constantly running from the Super Pinkies as well. So yeah, how I ended up doing this was I engaged with the Revenants and Archviles first. Once I took them out, I felt much more confident about going after the Super Pinkies, whom I could easily invoke Monster Invite in between them and the other projectile enemies that are there. Even so, I mean, this encounter was a bit challenging, and it was exactly the kind of challenge I was hoping for at the end of the map, so great stuff. And it's really for these reasons why this map is so great. The progression is awesome. I love the difficulty spikes as well. They're not unfair. They does seem a little sharp at times, because again, the map does start out incredibly easy. Even the first Cyber Demon fight is stupidly easy, but once you start getting to different areas in the map, especially that cavern-like environment that I mentioned and the final area, you realize there's much more to the map than you might be assuming. So the ominous and ambient aesthetics to this one are really just a nice icing on the cake. Now, this WAD isn't perfect. There are some minor texture misalignments here and there, but you know what? Even though it's not perfect, this map is pretty damn close. So I'm giving it a 9 out of 10, and I'm going to throw in 3 little flashlights here to help with the cavern section, for an overall score by my UAC Common Core math of 96%. In other words, definitely play this one. You'll like it. Okay, and that's really all I have to say about it. Thank you all for watching. This is JagTagger93 signing out. You have a good one.